Hello, everyone. This is Sherry Stevens, the CEO of the Women's Executive Network, and I have with me today Tanya Geisler. Tanya is a certified leadership coach, an in-demand international TEDx women speaker, and writer who teaches leaders how to combat their imposter complex and lead with iconic impact so they can achieve their ultimate goals. Tanya is also a WXN vetted master coach and will lead a session in our 10-session Boldly Forward Leadership Learning Series. Her session is on October the 30th, and it is titled Bold Moves, Iconic Leadership, Vision in Action. Welcome, Tanya.
I'm so looking forward to this. Oh my goodness, I cannot wait
I
to
know
come.
I can't wait either to be part of that. We've been speaking about this for the last 6 to 8 months, so looking forward to it. So glad you're with us and agreed to do this. Thank you.
I'm thrilled to be doing it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's take a sneak peek behind the curtain. Are you ready to dive in?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Mhm.
so your session focuses on one piece of your iconic framework, the
Mhm.
implementation.
Mhm.
So can you give us a quick breakdown of what implementation means and how it fits into your framework?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the framework itself because, implementation comes down to three words. And so it's sort of out of context, it doesn't translate. Um, But it really does because implementation is just do the work, right? It's just do the work. Whatever the work is, just do the work. So iconic is, I love wordplay, and iconic is, first of all, such a great word. But it's also, so it's a framework and it's an acronym. And again, for the wordplay, yes, my work is with the imposter complex. And I always say you can't spell iconic without IC twice. You can't spell iconic without imposter complex sitting right in there, right?
Yeah,
The beginning of your journey, you're going to experience it because who am I to become an icon? And then after you've been in your iconic status for a while, you're on to the next thing, and the imposter complex is going to show up again. But it's also an acronym for a process that I believe, mm, I know, helps us to really claim our expertise, claim our authority, claim the space that the universe has carved out uniquely for us. And it starts with identity. I is identity, how you see yourself, how you see yourself moving through the world. C is confronting the critics, getting into and under all of the reasons we think we can't have what we want. O is optimize all of that is already here. N is network, and that's really making sure that you are surrounded by the best and the brightest who can reflect back your brilliance when you forget it. I
yeah,
is implement, and C is celebrate. So all of those play into this process that I've been talking about since longer than I care to mention. But that implement, you can't, you just, there's no shortcut. You got to do the work. And usually I say this is good news because we are doing, it means that you get to do more of what you love. Um, and that's who we're talking to. We're talking to people who are making bold moves in realms that they love. I did a TEDx talk on the imposter complex back in 2012, and I talked about how, and the tipping point, which became very popular for one of the pieces, Dan Levitin talked about how it takes 10,000 hours to become a world-class expert in anything. And for me, I think it's more like 10,000 decisions, right?
okay,
What do
makes
we
sense.
prioritize? I say I want to do this thing, but when I put everybody else's needs in front of my own, I'm not doing my work, right? I'm not
Mhm.
being loyal to
Mhm.
my vision. I'm not honoring my word to myself. I'm actually out of integrity. So implement is just simply do the work. Do the work, do the
Okay,
work, do the work.
okay,
That's
great.
what we're talking about.
I love
Yeah.
that. And I do want to talk about the imposter syndrome here as well, or complex.
Mhm.
So what's your bugaboo? I love that. Bugaboo myth about the imposter complex that you wish we'd all stop believing, and what's the real truth behind it?
This is an unfair question because there's so much, right? First of all, I talked about there are 12 specific lies that the imposter complex has us believe, right? And all of them are designed to keep us out of action, doubting our capacity, and alone and isolated. So there's a lot that I want us to divest from. Also, I do call it imposter complex, which you caught, rather than imposter syndrome, largely because I think when we call it a syndrome, we're pathologizing it, and we're
Mhm.
co-opting a medical term.
Right.
So anybody who's
Never thought of it
listening,
that way. Yeah.
right? So
Hmm.
if you have a syndrome, if you have diagnosed syndrome, it dilutes it. It dilutes the gravitas of what your lived experience is. And frankly, this experience is just really universal. It's part, if you have strong values of integrity and proficiency and excellence, you're going to experience imposter complex because you're creating new things, you're doing new things. So I think it's actually a sign that, first of all, you have those beautiful values.
Hmm.
Second, you're doing important work, work that matters. Um, and third, really, for me, this is just about turning a light on faster than anything else. It's not about eradicating it. I think the imposter complex is really just here to remind us that, again, this work matters to us, that we are on the precipice of something glorious, something that we haven't done before, maybe that somebody that nobody's done before. I think it's a really exciting place to be. So rather than allowing it to shut us down, what if we started to look at it as like, oh, this must matter. This must be important. This must be
Hmm.
exciting and really lean into it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think when it starts to bring fear, right? When you start to fear it, I think you know that it's important because it's a part that you have to get out of your comfort zone, right? You have to work hard, you have to work at it, you do the work, right? I think that's
Mhm.
the whole part of behind the imposter complex. And does it really ever go away?
No,
No.
it really doesn't. So this, like, it just doesn't. I think, when you talk to people and they say, well, I used to experience it, um, what we know typically is that, again, I'll repeat this. It wants to keep us out of action. It wants to have us doubt our capacity, and it wants to keep us alone and isolated.
Hmm.
So if you pay attention to anybody who's ever talked about imposter complex, whether it's Michelle Obama or Tina Fey or anybody who's ever talked about it in any way, shape, or form, Lupita Nyong'o, they will tell you how they have tackled it will be in some way, shape, or form, either dealing with it head on, right? If it wants to keep us out of action, then we need to address those
Yeah.
critics, figure out what's here in our way. They have gathered their people. If it wants to keep us alone and isolated, then our strategy has to be, gathering our cast. That's the N in network. So they've gathered their people. Um, or if it has us doubt our capacity, they've bolstered the proof about all that they have done to this point. This is where they optimize. So everybody that has ever managed it or navigated it has somehow addressed it in one of those systematic ways in some
Hmm.
way, shape, or form. So I think about it again, just having a faster recovery. So most people, when they say that they've conquered it, what they're really saying is, I have tools, I have
Right.
strategies,
Yes.
I
I
know what
like
to do
that.
when it shows up, right? Doesn't
Hmm.
mean it doesn't show up. It
Yeah.
means I just know how to turn the lights on faster.
I like the
That's what's
N.
happening.
I like the
Like that.
N in iconic, the N,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's something that I've experienced just being the owner and CEO of WXN, because we all have imposter and then everybody looks at me, well, how can you have imposter complex? Well, yeah,
Yeah.
everybody does. And what I love about the network is that they're there for me, right? You're a prime example of that, right? When you hit that wall and you think, what am I doing? I can't do this. Who am I to think that I can do this?
Hmm.
Right? And
And then
everybody
you
kind
gather
of,
your people.
right? You gather your people, you gather the WXN network. Like it's just, I love it because that's out of everything that purchasing this organization, I think that's the one thing that I will take away with me whenever I depart this organization, right? Is that network because that is priceless.
It doesn't matter which group I'm talking with. It doesn't matter. Everybody who's ever done anything that really, really, really matters, at some point when we get to the end part, the network, uh, this came up not very long ago at the Society of Women Engineers conference, national conference in Chicago. And, you know, these women are like VP level and up in all engineering firms, they have come up against a whole lot of stuff. And everyone who has had enjoyed any kind of a success will say, I would literally be nowhere if it weren't for the support, the advocacy of my network. I would be nowhere without my network. That
Exactly.
is just the truth of it. And it gives me so much hope when there's so much despair, because I think that we are finally divesting in some way, shape, or form from this rugged individualism, which is killing us. And we're stepping into more collective care
Yeah.
and really understanding that at our very best, we are tribal. We are a
Yeah.
medicine
Yeah,
culture.
we are.
And Sherry, when you forget your medicine, you come to me and I remind you of what you got. And
Hmm.
I need you to remember what you've got
Yeah.
because we all have to bring our
And vice
best.
versa. Yep.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
exactly. Love it. Thank you.
So honestly, this to me, so do we ever overcome it? I don't believe so. I just think that we have a faster recovery, or we have that conscious, that unconscious competence part where it's like, oh, I'm already using my tools. I
Yeah.
think it's more like we have an integration of those tools. But as long as we are stretching ourselves and at the precipice of expansion and continuing to do important work that matters that we haven't done before, it's gonna show up.
Yeah.
And so as long as we have those values of proficiency and integrity and excellence and want to do really good and this work matters, it's going to show up. We just have faster tools for faster recovery. That's it.
Love the tool. Love the toolkit. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. My last question.
Yeah.
Why do you think we keep coming up against the imposter complex, no matter how much we grow? Why is it a persistent challenge?
Because this group here, bold moves, right? It's baked right into the mission here. We want to take bold moves. That means we're constantly stretching. And it means that as long as we are continuing to stretch, we're going to come up against this precipice of expansion. It's actually part of a really basic um, physiological response, just like fear. So it's gonna show up. This might not be safe. Are you really sure you want to do this? What happens if you are wildly successful? Everything's gonna change. So this is some of the internal dialogue. I say that we fear success as much as we fear failure for this very reason. And again, it's going to continue to show up as long as you are in the precipice of expansion. If you're doing the work that matters, the work that challenges you, the work that is exciting to you, as long as the stakes feel high, and as long as you have those beautiful values of proficiency, excellence, and integrity, it's going to show up. How we handle it is also deeply conditioned. So some people will try to negotiate with it, with thinking that their perfectionism will protect them from this experience, or, if they diminish, or comparison, or people pleasing, or leaky boundaries. These are all coping mechanisms. And a lot of those coping mechanisms are a bigger deal than the actual experience of imposter complex itself. And a lot of those are conditioned responses. So, so it's some conditioning. It's some having to do with operating in a world that wasn't necessarily designed for you, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and it comes down to those values. So it's this triumvirate plus of reasons that we continue to come up against it. And no matter what the reasons are, the strategies will always work as long as you work them.
Okay. Wonderful. I can't wait to dive in to
Me too.
your session in October. That is
Okay.
again on October the 30th. So
Okay.
thank you today, Tanya, for your time. I really appreciate it. And to the audience out there, get ready to elevate your leadership game with the WXM Boldly Forward Leadership Learning Series, starting on March 6th and running through to December. This series is designed to ignite your potential, push your boundaries, and drive you towards success. For more details, please visit wxnetwork.com or follow the link below. Tanya, have a fabulous day and thank you again. We really appreciate it. Appreciate you and everybody out there. Thank you. And please, let's all step boldly forward into our future together.
Let's do it.